Hi guys, James here and welcome back to the Gamefree YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be covering 5 ways that gaming negatively impacts your life. Now, this video isn't specifically meant for gaming addicts, it's just for people that play games either casually or maybe they're a hardcore gamer and not quite aware of what gaming is actually doing to them. So, the first way that gaming negatively impacts your life is that it gives you less enjoyment in other activities because of how stimulating video games are. You see, the way your brain works, it just acts on almost a binary response level. Whenever your brain gets hit of dopamine, it associates whatever you got that hit from with being a good thing, being a good activity. And gaming does this to such a high degree. It's so stimulating. It's even comparable to some like hard drugs and other activities. And when you're doing this over and over and over again, it's almost like you're numbing your brain's response. And so when you try to take up another activity and you don't get the same level of dopamine or the same response in your brain as gaming, your brain just kind of defaults to like, whoa, why should I bother doing this when I could just be doing this? Because it doesn't care where it gets this dopamine from, where it gets all these happy chemicals from. All it cares about is how much it can get as easy as possible. So you don't have to go and hunt a mammoth or something to go and get the same level of dopamine as you do now. You just have to press a few buttons, turn on the console, the PC, and suddenly you're in this incredible world doing these amazing things. You're spending time with friends, whatever else, and it's instant satisfaction as far as your brain is concerned with just the touch of a button. And this is a common thing with anyone who tries to quit gaming. They quit and they take up another activity, another hobby like music or drawing or something like that, and they hate it. They're not getting any satisfaction, it's unfulfilling, it's boring, and that's because they've become used to the level of stimulation that they get from video games, and their brain expects everything else to be that easy when it's just not the case. So if you're playing games casually and you've perhaps noticed less enjoyment from other areas of your life, this could be one reason. Now, the second way that video games are negatively impacting your life, and this isn't necessarily the case with everyone, but what it can do is make you less present in social situations and in your romantic relationships. So what this means is that while people are talking, while you're trying to be involved, engaged with someone in conversation or with a load of friends, you struggle to pay attention. And what gaming does over time is it reduces your attention span, and this is also dependent on the games that you play and the amount that you play, but it reduces your attention span and it dulls your ability to build social skills. Because if you're spending all day, all night playing video games, you're not interacting with people in the outside world. And as a result, over time, you become less adept, less skilled in social settings with talking to people, with chatting to girls or guys or whatever you need to do. And it really starts to negatively impact your life the longer it goes on for. And if you play a lot of video games and you struggle with getting out there, putting yourself in these situations, it really is an uncomfortable thing to do because you're just not used to it. And the people who are good at social situations, social conversation and whatever else, they've been putting a lot of work in. They haven't been spending the time cooped up in their room in the dark, sleeping late, whatever else. They're very much social people because they've worked on that social ability. It's just like playing a video game. You can't get to level 100 in skill just by sitting around doing nothing. You have to grind out and put the hours in and progress over time. And the same thing goes for social settings. So if you play video games and you're not quite where you want to be in terms of talking to people, you're not casual about it, you're not charismatic, getting out of video games, out of the virtual world, and putting yourself in the real world will go a huge way towards overcoming that problem. And the third way that gaming negatively impacts you is something I briefly touched on in the last point, but that is a poor quality of sleep that comes about as a result of playing video games in the evening. Now, one of the most common things I hear people say about video games is that it helps them relax. And I go into this in another video about the myths of video games. And it's one of the things that bugs me all the time, because I used to play video games all the time when I was going to bed, like just before I'd sleep. And I never felt more relaxed after playing games than I did before them. You're in this hyper stimulating world. You're constantly alert. You're looking out for threats, for new encounters, worlds, whatever else, like high intensity situations. You are not going to be relaxed after you play these games. And yet so many people play them before they go to sleep, thinking it sends them off and gives them a nice, restful night's sleep. But quantity of sleep doesn't mean quality. And just because you might be getting 7 to 8 hours in doesn't mean that's the same quality as you could get as if you cut off video games a couple of hours before, got ready for bed, read a book, did some journaling, meditation, whatever else, and then went to sleep. If you did that for 2 weeks, you don't even have to cut out video games. You can still play them, but if you focus on those last couple of hours before bed, do something productive instead of playing video games, like planning out the next day, and all those things I mentioned earlier, even going for a run or something, exercising, I don't know, you'll find within a week or two, you'll feel much better. Not just in the mornings, but throughout the day. You'll have more energy, you'll be more motivated, more excited, more disciplined, all these kinds of things, and you still get to play video games. It really isn't helping you just playing even casually, like even a small amount before you go to bed is going to have a drastic impact when you compound that to weeks, months, years, even decades. And the fourth point on this list is kind of a indirect thing that comes about as a result of playing video games, and again, doesn't apply to everyone. So before you start like getting angry at me in the comments about, oh, this doesn't affect me, whatever, just, okay, I get it. But when people play video games a lot, they are spending less time outdoors, less time in the sunlight, less time exercising, they're not getting good food, nutrition, whatever else, which in the long term leads to poorer mental health, poorer physical health, compromised immune system. All these things that come with, well, all those things that I mentioned are at their source coming from your overconsumption of video games. Because if you're playing 3 hours every night, or in the morning when you wake up, or at lunchtime, whatever it is when you play, you are missing out on all these things that could completely transform your life. And almost everyone I know that plays a lot of video games struggles with mental health and physical health. I was the same. I was horribly depressed throughout university and afterwards, even in school. And it's because what I would do is I would escape from my problems in video games. So instead of getting the things done that I need to get done, and instead of spending time exercising and getting outdoors and like meeting other people, I would go home, play video games, avoid my homework, my college work, my responsibilities, because I felt safe in the virtual world. And what this does over time is it not just will lead to things like depression and anxiety and stress, but it also results in a lack of discipline and even like emotional maturity, things like that. It's really has a knock-on effect the longer you play video games, and nobody even realizes it. No, it's like a hidden pandemic of like all these side effects people are having as a result of gaming and other addictions like pornography, which is a huge one that really destroys especially men in the modern world. And they don't realize these things are going on, and they take medication for it, do all this stuff, instead of cutting it out at the root cause and focusing on what's really important. And some of that stuff might trigger people, but I don't care. It's what I've found talking to dozens, hundreds of people about this thing. And once you cut out gaming, it really elevates the rest of your life to a whole new level. So start there and see how much your life changes as a result, even if you just play a small amount. If you're playing like 12, 16 hours a day, yeah, you need to cut it out right now. And the last point on this list, number 5, and probably what I would think is the most important, is the sense of instant gratification you get from playing video games too much. And again, I briefly touched on this in the 4th point, but when you're playing video games, despite them like at their core being almost like the most masculine thing you can think of, right? It's like you're building things, you're overcoming challenges, achieving things where you're spending time with your friends, you're slaying enemies and conquering shit and whatever else you need to do. But all of this effort that you put in without any tangible reward whatsoever, over the long run is completely destroying your ability to put in hard work, put in the effort, delaying gratification, and doing the things necessary that you need to do in order to propel yourself forward in life, in order to really level up and transform yourself into the person you want to become, which is what I focus on a lot with Gamefree, is that transformation after you stop playing video games. And a lot of guys, they're not used to experiencing this kind of adversity because they've been subject to this mindset for most of their lives from playing video games that with just a small amount of reward and a small amount of effort, they can achieve the wildest things. They can like max out their character in every stat. They can travel to all these incredible worlds, get the heroine of the story, like do whatever they want to do by just pressing a few buttons with absolutely no sense of failure whatsoever. Like, you can fail, you can die, you can lose your saved game, whatever, but you can just start again and be back where you were in a couple of hours. It's really not it's not a problem, basically. It's a problem that we've made up in our heads, and like, it's just not a problem. And when you go out into the real world and you want to actually make a change in your life, and suddenly you're bombarded with all these problems, all these stresses, all these difficulties in life, it hits hard, it hurts, it's painful. Because we haven't experienced dealing with that throughout our lives, we just collapse and we retreat back into the thing that's comfortable, back into our area of safety, our comfort zone, which is, for most people, video games. And this is the case whether you play a couple of hours a day, whether you play 12 hours a day. The same thing repeats itself in so many people that I talk to. So with that, I finished up this video. Was there anything that resonated with you? Have you noticed any negative impacts from gaming that I might not have mentioned in this video? Or do you want to just tell me I'm wrong and complain about me in the comments? Feel free. But in the meantime, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, comment, subscribe, everything else that I got to say that makes me a YouTuber, and see you in the next video. Cheers.